Hello, welcome to Artist Waves live interview series, Tuesday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. Happy Cinco de Mayo. My name is Jeff Gora. You are checking out Artist Waves. Thanks for joining in. People starting to spill in. Got a big one today. Brandon Boyd from Incubus. I'm blasting his music, the new EP in the background here. I'll lower it a little bit. This is called Paper Cuts. This song closes the new EP that came out April 17th. Hello everyone joining. NJKG, O-Dog, Just Julie, Hell83. Hello everybody. My name is Jeff Gora, Artist Waves. Today's guest is Brandon Boyd from Incubus. Man, I cannot be more excited to talk to Brandon. I've met Brandon a few times, and we last saw each other in October, and that was at the Make Yourself 20-year tour. And man, what a special tour that was. What a great show that was. Theaters. Brandon, I've been lucky enough to do a lot of interviews the past 6 or 7 years, and I gotta say, of all the people that I've gotten to interview, Brandon is by far one of my favorite people to talk to. He's just so down to earth. He's just such a cool dude. He's so sincere, I think is the word I'm looking for. Authentic. He's on a wavelength that I totally get. He just his artistic approach just always has made sense to me. Very, very grateful guy, very humble guy, and he always has a really interesting perspective on the questions you ask him, and he thinks deeply about it. So I think Brandon should be here within the next probably 3-4 minutes. Give him a few minutes. So we'll talk for a little while, for probably, I don't know, maybe 15 minutes or so. And then maybe we'll be able to get to some questions. If people want to fire in some questions in the comments, we'll give you the heads up when it's time to do that. But we got a lot to talk about. Obviously, what he's been up to, how life has been in SoCal for him and the Incubus boys the past month or two, the new music, the meeting of the two worlds, and you know what his outlook is on what lies ahead. Supposed to tour with 311, another great friend of Artist Waves. Supposed to tour with 311 in just about 2 months. So there's a lot to talk about. As far as some Artist Waves history with Brandon, we've done some really cool stuff. In addition to interviews, he's shared some artwork with us, and we have he contributed to a Chris Cornell special, so we have a pretty cool history. And again, I couldn't be more excited to interview Brandon again and have him on this platform. It's going to be hopefully a pretty fascinating conversation. Hello everyone joining in now. Man, these have been so fun, I have to say. Jennifer Bell Makeup. What's up? Richunka 2018. Hello. Nacho something. Nacho. Surf Travel. Hi everybody. Brandon Boyd coming up on Artist Waves. We have a lot to talk about. I'm really excited. And yeah, think about things you want to talk about. Think about some questions, and hopefully he'll be cool enough to he'll be down to field a few, maybe about the new music, maybe about his writing style and his artwork, and we'll tap into a few. He's done a few of these, I know. Each have been really entertaining. Aldous Collins, what's up? Nacho Libre shout out. Okay. Aldous Collins is in the house. He's got some really great stuff on Instagram going on too. If you see his name right there, he's doing some really great fundraisers with his music and some really cool things on the East Coast. So I highly recommend some of the good vibes that he's been putting out. So what else we want to talk about before Brandon joins? Before Brandon enters the Artist Waves room, I'll check to see if there's anything yet. Gonna have to check out Cornell work. Yes, please do. Chris Cornell, he comes up a lot in these conversations, even though he's not necessarily the topic at hand. But he is a big inspiration by one of the reasons why I even exist in the first place. So, all right, Brandon is here, and let's get him in. Okay, here we go. Brandon.
Hi.
What's up, man?
Not a lot. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you? Thank you for joining us,
Good.
Artist Waves interview series today.
Right on. Thanks for having me.
Always a pleasure. How you doing, man? How's life in your world going?
You know, I can't really complain. It's such strange circumstances that we all exist in right now. So the fact that I have a safe and comfortable place to be in this lockdown is more than I could ask for. So I'm doing very well, all those things considered. Yeah. How about you?
Right on. Well, same. Thanks for asking. Same. I think, relatively speaking, I probably share a lot of the sentiments that you just mentioned. Music's helping a lot,
For sure.
and just staying busy. The days are going fast, which is weird.
They are starting to, aren't they?
Yeah, I'm not going to
At first,
complain about that.
it was really painstakingly slow, and then I think maybe about 10 days ago, for me, it started to kind of like speed up considerably.
Yeah. I really can't pinpoint why it is, but I'm okay with it. And obviously, I've been cranked. We were just listening to Trust Fall Side B, having a little chat before you came in, and things like
Nice.
that. And that record, and a lot of the new music has come out has helped a lot. I can't stop listening. I can't put it down. Trust Fall Side B. I can't stop
Thank
listening to
you.
it. To be honest with you,
That's awesome, man.
it's
Thank
a
you.
really cool piece of music and a really interesting perspective that pairs very nicely with the here and now.
Yeah. And, you know, obviously it was written before any of this stuff happened. It is kind of weird and interesting how music can uh, feel relevant during something that it was never really intended on relating to, you know?
Yeah.
That happens all the time, though. It happens with old music, too, like stuff that you grew up listening to. You might listen to it as an adult, and it applies like perfectly to your life circumstance in that particular moment. Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
It does. I was thinking about that this morning. I was listening to the record, but I also was going deep into your catalog, and it was like dawned on me just what you just said. It's funny how I'm sure everyone has their artists that this happens with, but
Yeah.
your records when they come out so well pair with what's going on in my world.
Hmm.
That it's like this cool, comforting thing, but it's like in a way it gets trippy, and you're like, wow, how did that music so much identify with what I'm experiencing right now? And I mean, that's only a good thing, but I'm sure everyone has
Yeah.
that.
I think so. I think that when we're really clued into music and I suppose when we allow music to be uh, a kind of a way of expressing ourselves, not only through like writing it and performing it, but by absorbing it, listening to it, and experiencing it. You know, I can say that uh, like wholeheartedly that the music that I listen to uh, did and does impact me on a daily basis. Sometimes I catch myself just like lost in like a reverie. You know,
Yeah.
like I tune into a song and someone starts talking to me, and then they're like, "Hey, what do you think? What should we have for dinner?" I'm like, "Oh my God, I'm sorry.
It's dinner time.
It's dinner time." Exactly. It's like a lovely kind of escape of sorts. You know that so much of our musical experiences, I think, is associated with escape, and it kind of whisking us away from whatever our current uh, situation is, whatever, like that works very well, and we all know that. But I also think that music really can be a an avenue for arriving as well. I think it can bring in certain realizations. So it doesn't only act as an escape mechanism, it can also act as like a transport mechanism to bring you to uh, relatively profound and sometimes deeply profound realizations about who you are, especially when we're young, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, I know. I totally relate to that. And I don't know if I fit into the young category yet. I'd like to, or still, but it happens to me daily,
Yeah.
especially around now. So
Yeah.
I was saying beforehand, before we joined, that your approach and your thoughtfulness that goes into every word and melody is something that has always kind of like hit me here. That has always
Thank
been
you.
something about Incubus that has always meant a lot to me. And it's something I think that makes your music resonate, deeply in any platform, in any record. I was about to say a funny thing, going off the path a little bit. About 10 years, I may have told you this the first time we ever did an interview, about 10 years ago or so now. I was walking in Venice Beach, totally in that space we're kind of talking about, like,
Yeah.
floating away, and I turned a corner and you turned a corner at the same time, and we smashed shoulders like right into each other, and we both kind of turned around and was like, what the, and then kind of was like, all right, cool, and then just kept walking. But
Yeah.
it took me a good minute or two to realize, like, oh, that was Brandon from it's
I'm
just
sorry. I hope I wasn't a dick about it. Sometimes I'm like walking and totally lost in thought, and I'll like collide with somebody and be like, ah, it, you know,
well,
it shocks you back into your body.
I was doing the exact same thing, and it took me a second to piece it together, because I think it was probably the Monuments and Melodies days. You had just cut your hair short, and I was like, wait,
Right.
nope, there's the tattoo. Yeah. So it was probably my bad, but anyway, kind of a funny thing.
Yeah.
How we first connected.
Yeah.
But are you able to? I was curious too. We share a love of surfing. Have you been able to surf? Has that been something that's an outlet for you right now?
No,
No.
where I am, they've been pretty intense about it, actually. I haven't tried to go because enough of my friends sent me videos and texts and stuff like that. Like, dude, did you hear? Like, they're giving out $1,000 tickets for paddling out at Malibu, and
Oh wow.
like lifeguard boats coming in, and they like take your surfboard and cuff you and the whole thing. It just seems a little heavy-handed. I mean, I get it. I get that they're trying to enforce all of these things, hopefully for our general safety. But all that being said, I'm chomping at the bit because it's like hot now
Yeah.
here, and there has been some swell in the water. So I've actually been trying not to look at it.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
when you see surf and you can't paddle out, or you don't have your stuff with you, it's like, it's kind of brutalizing on your soul. So I'm just kind of hoping very soon that they're going to lift some of these restrictions. Uh, I'm a firm believer that we should act out of a sort of collective uh, benefit for each other. I think that we need to be more cautious than anything, just in the event that we still don't really know
Yeah.
all of the available facts. So I'm of the mind that it's probably a good idea just to be patient, and if we can, just if we have the capacity to, stay home. But yeah, I can't wait to go surfing. The
Yeah.
minute they lift that order, I'm gonna go
You're
try and
there.
find an uncrowded break. Have you
To the
surfed?
surf, to the surfing. I hear you. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Are you? Is that making you turn to music a little bit more, playing some acoustic or painting? Or you been kind of
Yeah.
delving into that world?
Yeah. I've been definitely bonding with one of my older guitars over the past couple of months. Painting a bunch, reading a bunch. It's been an interesting time. I have to say, like, if it weren't for the sort of constant stream of quite disturbing news that's coming in from different parts of the world, if that one little part of it was taken out of the equation, I would say that I'll look back on this experience quite fondly, because I've been able to just kind of do what I normally do, which I am kind of a homebody to begin with, but it's just been turned up a couple of notches. I've become a better cook. I've been bonding with my my dogs, with my home, all of these things. So I just, when it comes down to it at the end of the day, I hope that human beings as a species, as a sort of a collective of sorts, I hope that we learn something from this
Yeah.
beyond just trying to rush back to some semblance of normal. I hope that we take something larger away from this experience, and the one that we
Yeah.
can really, really, hopefully create better circumstances for everyone.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I think so too. I hope so too. I think especially with some of the different art leading the way and that kind of
Hmm.
people thinking like that and influencing like that. I think it has to, it has to somehow.
Yeah.
What is it like to have a new music that's released in the middle of this? I mean, we talked a little bit about it so far, but I know obviously it's unlike any other release that you guys have ever had. Is
Yeah.
it a different feeling to be kind of behind the scenes with it right now?
Yeah. It was something we've talked about a little bit recently with other conversations that I've had, but uh, it there seems to be a little bit of, I know it's an imagined correlation, but our brains sort of are designed to connect dots here and there, and so it feels like something crazy happens every time we put a record out, or something is about to happen. And I know it has nothing to do with us. I know that it really isn't. It's merely coincidental, but like we released Morning View right around the time of September 11th, and we were beginning the Morning View tour. Um, I think the first date was like September 14th or 15th on the East Coast in 2001 when that whole thing happened. And we were, number one, so shocked and horrified at the situation that went down. And, we were right there in New York City when the whole thing happened. So it was a really intense experience for so many reasons. But to add a little bit more fuel to that emotional fire, we had just like poured our hearts into this record that we made. And so, of course, there was this question. It's like, does the record exist anymore? Is anybody going to listen to it? And obviously, those problems were small by comparison to the problems at large in the world. But I'd be lying if I said that it didn't occur to us. So we were even thinking, like, are we even going to be able to do this tour?
Yeah.
So long story short, we ended up doing the tour. We did every date, and everybody came, and it was a really successful record. And I remember thinking back then that I really hoped people wouldn't associate Morning View with terrible times. And it turns out that I don't think that was the takeaway for many, many people. I think that people associate it with the times during those hard times that were happy for them, the times where they were connecting with people that they love, the times where they were having transcendent experiences with music. And so what I'm deeply, deeply hoping is that with Trust Fall Side B, people will not, from this point forward, associate it and the songs on it with this really difficult time on Earth. More so, it will remind them of the wonderful things. That's what I'm hoping. Does that make sense?
For sure. And it's really interesting that you say that, because I remember that Morning View, it was that tour specifically that you're talking about. And I think might have been when you guys were last up here. I'm in the Boston area. When you guys were just on the Make Yourself 20 tour, we had a chance to say hi real quickly before the show. And Jose and I got into a quick conversation about, I think, like, you guys had to walk across the bridge in New York and stuff like that during that time.
Yeah.
And when I was watching that show, the Boston show, it was all of a sudden it all dawned up. Like, everything came rushing back to me about that time period, and that specifically that you're talking about, because I was at the Boston show. I think it was like September 15th or something.
Oh, wow.
And it was at the old Avalon, and it was the first time anyone had gone out of the house, apartment, college campus, whatever.
Yeah.
And that venue is right on Lansdowne Street, Fenway, right there. After the show, everyone just left the venue and just congregated in the street. And it was like no one really, very calm, everyone just kind of stood there, and it was like no one really wanted to go home. Everyone
Right.
just like just had that feeling that of joy that the music and the show and some of the introductions that you gave about leading into some of the songs,
Mm,
it just made everyone feel really, really good for a minute. And so that was my takeaway from the show in October. And
mm,
I wrote this thing called "Can I Tell You a Story About Incubus?"
mm,
based around my reaction from that show in October. And I
mm,
tell you, we heard from so many people that related, had an experience from that tour, or Morning
mm.
View, or even Make Yourself from
Yeah.
that tour, and how much it meant to them, and how much it still means to them 20 years later. So
Mm,
I guess it's somewhat relative to what we're talking about now with Trust Fall
yeah.
Side B, and how it's going to have that lasting impression. Because I think what I'm trying to say is the greater Incubus community and your music is very synonymous with just feeling good. You know,
Mm,
like
that's
it
a
just
wonderful
makes you
thing.
feel good. It makes you feel good by yourself. It makes you feel good with other people.
Mm,
And regardless of when trust falls, I think that's always going to be the case. So
right on. Thank you for saying so, man. I appreciate that. It's and I have to say, the feeling is um, intensely mutual. It is not just a sort of one-way street in our experience with music. It's not like we're sort of coldly writing it and putting it out there and then coldly performing it, robotically performing it. The experience is uh, just as intense and just as viscerally real for us as well. And I think that's probably why we're still so invested in it in so many ways. It's really like it's a revolving door of experiences. It's a conversation of sorts that we've been having with our audience for a few decades now,
yeah,
which is really wild to
yeah,
think about because in so many ways, I'm only 44 years old, but in so many ways, I feel like I'm just kind of figuring it out. Like I'm just figuring out um, how to like accept that this is, what I sort of quote do for a living, because it was never really my intention to begin with. I never thought I'd make a living doing it. I did it because I was fascinated by it and it terrified me and I loved it. And so, and it's honestly still, it's kind of all the same emotions are still present when we make music. So music's one of those things too. It's not like like you practice real hard and you get good at it and you're done. It's art. It's so vastly subjective that there really is no end point. You can set sort of immediate and sort of short-term goals with it, and you can find yourself, achieving those things, but there is no place where it's like, and I'm done.
yeah.
No, it's a rabbit hole that never stops spinning, whether it's down or up or in or out. I don't really know. So all I can say is that I'm incredibly uh, grateful, and I feel incredibly blessed to um, have been able to have this experience with so many people, with the guys in our band, with Mike and Jose and Ben and Chris. But the fact that that's been able to sort of scale out beyond us is something in my wildest dreams I could have never have anticipated.
Yeah, that's cool to hear you say that. I would imagine that perspective is a large reason why it's so impactful. So I got to ask you about Trustfall Side B
Yeah.
now that we've had a couple weeks with it, in the writing of it, and kind of your individual writing from a lyric standpoint and with the group. Um, I remember when Side A came out, you
Mm-hmm.
guys had a session. I believe it was like in Hans Zimmer's studio where we were thinking about maybe a Side B. Did
Hmm.
any of these songs come from that, or are they all relatively new over the past couple years?
They are mostly pretty new with a couple of pieces that emerged around the time we were writing Trust Fall Side A. Um, Most of the music to the track Into the Summer, um, whoa, my neighbor has a pool. And when the like leaf eater thing kicks on, it sounds like like a monster. It's kind of awesome. I don't know if you can hear it in there. Uh,
A little bit.
so
There's one out my window too, so I'm not sure if it was
yeah,
you or me.
yeah. So on the song "Into the Summer," the verse music, and I suppose it's the intro music too, that kind of emerged in those original writing sessions for side A. Um, but they kind of came about with like a gush of musical ideas that came from Mike and the guys. And so I don't consciously like choose which piece of music that Michael or Ben presents, like they, they present like sounds to me. And my process is I sort of react to them, and then I chase the things that create the most explosive reaction. Um, and so I reacted to what became Into the Summer, but I reacted more strongly and more immediately to something else. And so I chased the something else. And so I was just digging around in some files while we were writing side B, and I came across a demo for that verse music, and it just kind of clicked. And then there was a melody immediately, and then there was a lyric started to unfold immediately. And then I called Mike and sang it to him, and then we brought it into the studio. And then all of a sudden, like 4.5, 5 years later, the song, actually longer than that, 5 or 6 years later, the song gets finished,
Oh, wow.
So it went into there were a couple of song ideas that emerged around side A that went into a kind of creative dormancy, and then they reemerged and were completed, so to speak.
Oh, awesome. That's fascinating. And we solicited a couple people in regards to questions about the record, and we got a lot of feedback, a lot of questions about your lyrics and the writing and what your process was. And some lyrics that I'm a big lyrics person, some that jumped out to me. I find your lyrics are always very like poetic and artistic, as you said,
Thanks.
not just something that surfs on top of the music.
Yeah.
But Paper Cuts in particular, I think is a good example because like these pages, razor blades, like those are 3 words, but those are really profound, impactful 3 words. And then, closing with those words are mine. Like what was your process? I'm using that as an example, but a lot of people
Sure.
ask, like, what was your process in lyrics for Trust Fall Side B?
I suppose that the process is, I'll do my best to describe it in sort of in short, because the truth is that it's a little bit hard to put into words, as any sort of non-linear process would be. It's not something that moves from A to B to C to D all the way through to Z. It's more like Z floats by, and then Q floats by, and then XYZ floats by, and then my process is to create a sort of a container that welcomes in lots of ideas, and then I go in there and I just sort of piece them together, and it doesn't really even make sense while it's happening. It would be funny and I'm sure it's something as sort of indescribable or ineffable to most artists or most creative people in their process. Like if someone asked them, like, how did you paint that? They're like, you just sort of, I think it's more like I suppose it's more of a drive that somebody has towards novelty, a curiosity around novelty. And so I suppose I'm attracted to, metaphorically speaking, rooms in the house that aren't fully lit. I enjoy going into those metaphoric rooms, the dark rooms, and then creating light, and then starting to decorate them, and then living in them for a while, and then letting them go dormant for a while. You know what I'm saying? Like it's kind of a non-linear continuum of sorts. But in the case of Paper Cuts, it was an experience of somebody reading something that was about them, but was never intended to be read by them. I have this, it's a technique that is probably not unfamiliar to lots of people, but when someone or something inevitably collides with your worldview and creates like distress or chaos inside of you, I personally have found that it's a good idea to, rather than be purely reactive and add to the chaos and sow more confusion, I found it's been beneficial to hold, like take a few breaths, and then if you're still feeling that kind of emotional or egoic charge, to actually write them a letter without intending to send it, or write out. I've always done that. Like I kind of write out what I'm feeling. It helps me make sense of my own emotional process, I suppose. So in this case, I wrote one of those letters, and the person that was never supposed to read it read it, and it creates a whole other world of chaos. So if there's a moral to the story, it's like maybe burn those letters, or don't keep them on your computer. I don't know.
Well, selfishly, we got a great song out of it, so I
I
guess we can
suppose,
all
yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
And you know what else is cool too is obviously that's the song that closes the EP. But
Mm.
I know that there's a lot of thought that still gets put into sequencing, how you sequence a
Yeah.
record, even
Yeah.
in a world of singles. And I love
Yeah.
how it butts up against On Without Me. There's like this
Mm.
cool, I mean, I don't know if the narrative is connected at all, but there's this very cool closure of like, you kind of feel the page turning that you're talking about.
Yeah.
So it's kind of this cool connection that brings the whole record to come full circle.
Right
That was
on.
actually, and part of that was another question that someone had brought up, but something I noticed too.
Yeah. Thank you for taking the time to notice some of that stuff. It occurs to me that so many of these kind of micro decisions will likely fall on deaf ears. Most people, especially today, they're going to find the song that they like, and they're
Yeah,
just listen to that song and then disregard the rest. And that's okay. That's just, we can't dictate, as much as we'd like to sometimes, we can't dictate how people are going to absorb art or music. Um, Truthfully, it's just kind of a blessing that people even want to listen to one song, um, which is hard enough as it is. You have to remember, like, especially in the age of social media and the age of the internet, uh, regular old like rock bands, which were like decidedly old school at this point, we're technically like competing with uh, like Piano Kitty and
yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like the internet is this just incredible, limitless garbage pile. We like, here's our little piece of garbage
yeah,
that we're putting into the whole thing. Please notice it.
yeah.
But yeah, so like I said, it's a blessing to have even one song be appreciated, let alone the sequence of an EP or an album. So thank you.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Much appreciated those kind words as well. I'm just gonna take a second to say hi to all the people that are chiming in and saying hi and saying nice things. I saw Argentina and Brazil and all over the world in there. Hello, thank you everyone for tuning in to Brandon and I chatting, and the questions that you already submitted. Really appreciate it. I see one more out there that if you have time, I think would be fascinating to hear your input on. And obviously, there's a bit of an unknown right now, but there's a lot that at least is penciled in for Incubus for what comes next. And I'm sure there's not a lot of answers, but what do you foresee you in the group doing from here on out? I know the tour with 311 is supposed to start in 2 months, and you guys are supposed to be on your way to Europe. Who knows? But how do you feel about what the summer and fall may bring?
Mm. It's a good question. I wish I had a definitive answer, but I do not.
Yeah,
Europe is not happening this year. We already made that announcement, which honestly, we're gutted about it. Going to play in Europe and in the UK, it's so much fun. It's like one of my favorite things to do. There's part of it where the concerts are amazing, and it's so cool to be, in a different country every day or every couple of days. There's really nothing like that. But there's something about being on the tour bus in Europe and in UK. They have these, they're different. And so on the buses there, they have these little like viewing lounges up top above the driver. And we sit up there and we just get to watch like these beautiful European landscapes in the spring and in the summer. And it's like, it
wow.
just doesn't get any better. So they're kind of bummed about that, but we're hoping that some of the right things return to normal, and we will hopefully be back there this time next year. As far as the summer goes with 311, you know, it is, yes, technically still on the books, but it seems like a long shot, to be honest. I honestly, I can't say definitively, but I would be very surprised if it happened. Delightfully surprised, but I'd be surprised.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's kind of what we're seeing across the board. But at least we got new music. At least we have outlets like this to get to connect, and for people to engage and to share their thoughts, and kind of venture off on an escape for a little bit. We're all in the same boat, you know. So, and I have to tell you, Nick Hexum sent me a really funny picture of you and him from, I think, 1999 in like a kiddie pool on tour together, in like a blow up pool in the pool in the by the tour buses. It's awesome. It's great.
That's amazing. I'm gonna text him and ask him to send it to me. That sounds great.
Awesome. Well, Brandon, I really appreciate you taking the time. I'll let you go. I could talk to you forever. Your insight, your thoughtfulness, as part of the group and as an artist, resonates loudly always, but especially in times like now. So I sincerely thank you. Artist Waves has been privileged enough to collaborate with you a couple times, and this was a unique one. So thanks so much, man.
Thank you too. Take care out there, all right?
Likewise, Trust Ball, Side B, Incubus, Jeff Gora, Artist Waves. Be healthy, be safe. Thanks so much, man. Thanks everyone who chimed in. Thanks everyone for your questions. This was a blast. Much love to you all. Hi, Brooke. Hi, Fred STO. Hi, Jake. Hi, everybody. Right on. By the way, there's like these birds in the background. I think that were coming from wherever you are. That added such a cool little accent to our conversation.
You can hear them?
I can hear it, but it was such like a sweet little background noise. It's like the birds from Bob Marley's Three Little Birds that are just like chirping in the background, providing the sweet song.
I've spent, I'll just leave you with this last thought. I've spent the past few years on my place here in California repopulating my yard with native pollinating. There's stuff to attract pollinators. So it has attracted the craziest birds and bugs and butterflies. It's awesome. I love it. So I'm glad you can actually hear it.
Oh, it was great. I loved it. It was perfect little highlight.
Nice.
Well, thanks so much, man. Really appreciate it. Always great chatting with you.
You too. Take care.
Take care.
Bye.